Hi guys, it's Cressey coming to you with the second video of our week here. We're going to talk today about breathing and how it relates to your posture and how that impacts your performance. And breathing is an interesting topic with respect to exercise because for the longest time we've actually looked at it at two different ends of the spectrum. On one end, we look at breathing and meditation. Yoga is something that can really help us to relax and reduce some of that sympathetic tone that we kind of have in that fight or flight response. At the other end of the spectrum, we know that good breathing quality can actually enhance the intra-abdominal pressure and help us to stabilize our spine when we lift heavy weights. So I think the answer is that everything kind of falls in the middle. We can always learn a little bit from both ends of the spectrum and apply it to our training. So what does that mean in the context of exercise? Well, I think it sits well with our theme this week of learning how to customize programs to your needs. And one of the things that we look at with all of our clients, whether they're general fitness folks or professional athletes, is where does their core position start? Because your breathing really does impact your core position and vice versa. So we use Tony as a little bit of an example. Tony's got an athletic background from his baseball days all the way onto to his lifting nowadays, and he sits in a pretty extended posture. So if you look at him from the side angle, he's going to have that natural lordotic curve to his spine, meaning a little bit of a curve here, but his is a little bit more accentuated because of where his athletic disciplines have taken him. So when you have a little bit more of that extension pattern, those ribs come up in the front. So we'll have Tony kind of exaggerate it a little bit, and you will see guys that move like this and wind up with low back pain, anterior hip pain, whatever it may be. But what we really think about in the mechanism of breathing, and this is something we learned from the Postural Restoration Institute, they talk about something called a zone of apposition. And what this basically is a fancy way of saying that if your ribs are up like this, it makes it very difficult for your diaphragm to come up and go back down. Okay, our diaphragm is a very powerful respiratory muscle, helps us to get air in, and if it's not able to work in the space that it would normally have if you had your ribs down in the correct position, then we have to look elsewhere to kind of create that level of inhalation. So we look to our neck, we use our sternocleidomastoid, our scalenes, and our pec minor, and our lats, all these accessory respiratory muscles that we really don't want to use as our prime movers. We want to use that diaphragm. So one of the things that we do with folks who have that really extended posture is we learn how to get those ribs down, get a little bit of posteriorly tilting of that pelvis, get a little bit flatter in your spine, create that good positioning of your rib cage so that you can breathe more effectively. When you do that, a lot of times what you'll find is that guys will get range of motion elsewhere. So that breathing will actually reduce stiffness, whether it's improving a little bit of internal rotation at the shoulder, or maybe some hip internal rotation. Just by getting guys back to neutral, pretty good things happen. So we're going to give you 4 exercises today to kind of touch on all those things. It's important to consider that not all these will be a great fit for everyone. If you're someone who sits at a desk all day, this first exercise, for instance, probably isn't going to be a great fit for you, but we'll talk you through it as we go through. All right? So we're going to start off with a deep squat breathing with lat stretch. We're using just a loaded up prowler as a counterbalance. Tony's going to grab right on the post here, feet are together, knees are together, and he's going to dip down in. And what you'll notice about Tony is he's going from an extended position to maybe a neutral or slightly flexed position in his low back. He's not incredibly rounded over to end range. I think, kind of that low back rounding gets a little bit of a bad rap because we assume that people are going from neutral to a really rounded position. Plus, he's not actually loading this up. He's just getting in a good position, putting a big stretch in those lats, getting him to relax. And all we're going to do is we're going to have him take a big breath in through his nose, and we're going to exhale fully. Okay? When he exhales, we want his ribs to really come down. We want that stretch along his lats to be accentuated a little bit. This is also a great way to kind of regroove that squat pattern if you're someone who's lost it from mobility restrictions or a lack of stability over time. So when he does that big exhale, some of the biggest feedback he's going to get is, do you feel it underneath your ribs? Do you have that anterior core really going crazy? Are you getting your obliques turned on? Because that anterior core musculature is what's going to help to get air out for you. Okay? So there's our first one. We usually go 5 breaths in the bottom position, have people get up and do their thing. Okay? We're going to progress it, go to what's called a bench T-spine move. Okay? So he's going to drop down, both knees on the ground, both elbows right to the center of the table, or in this case, the bench. Hands are about shoulder width apart. He's actively almost trying to pull the bar across here and out to the sides. In the process, he's going to maintain a good packed neck, so he's got a double chin, relatively neutral spine, maybe even slightly flexed. And all we're going to have him do is we're going to have him gently rock back his butt to his heels. Okay? You'll notice as he rocks back, the elbows bend a little bit more, almost like he's trying to take the dowel rod here to the back of his neck. When he's down there, he's going to give a big exhale, really let his ribs come down. He's using that ability to turn on his core musculature as part of breathing to really help to own that pattern, as Gray Cook would say. So come on back up to the top. We're going to sink back down and in. Drop in, big stretch on your lats, which we're looking to shut off here so we get out of so much extension. Turn on those anterior core muscles, and then come on back up top. So we should really be feeling this in his abs throughout the exercise in that bottom position. That's how we learn to establish that range of motion. Great exercise for people who don't spend a whole lot of time overhead, or people who want to learn to get overhead pain-free. Okay? So with this exercise, we're actually working with gravity. It's helping to exaggerate the stress for us. Now we're going to actually add one that makes you work against gravity. So we're going to go around your back and do a dead bug. Okay? So the dead bug, we make it not so much just a mobility exercise, now it's more of a stability exercise. So Tony's going to go up with both hands and both knees, and you can regress this, take one out of the equation and just do the feet at first if you want to, but we're going to kind of show them the more advanced version. We're going to go left heel to the ground, and as his right hand comes down to the ground overhead. While he's doing this, he's working to keep ribs down, low back nice and flat. When those hands get all the way up overhead and the foot's fully extended out here, we're going to give it a big exhale, ribs come down, and then we're going to come back up, switch sides. So breath in through the nose, and then also he fully exhales, those ribs come down, low back's nice and flat underneath him. So he's resisting the effect of the arm and the leg to pull him into extension. Okay, so he's fighting against gravity. All right, so we usually do 6 per side with that big exhale at the bottom. And then these 3 exercises kind of peak when we go over and we do something called a back to wall shoulder flexion. So he's going to walk over here. We're going to set up about 6 to 8 inches away from the wall with our heels. Okay, we're going to get the low back nice and flat to the wall, so I shouldn't be able to get my hands in behind him. He's flattened out. He's got a little bit of a double chin in place, so he's in a neutral spine from head to toe. Okay, we want to make sure those elbows don't dive behind us as if we were really turning those lats on. And all we're going to do is we're going to try to come up and take our thumbs to the wall up overhead. So as Tony comes up, he's not going to lose that posture. He's going to try to get here. When he gets to that top position, he's going to give it a big exhale, and you're going to watch those ribs come down. He's going to really turn on that anterior core. Okay, we're going to come back down, go through a couple of reps. You notice as he comes down, he doesn't pull down aggressively. He lowers it under control and puts it right back to the good starting position. Okay, everyone's going to be a little bit different on what needs to be cued on this. If you're someone whose shoulders sit really low, maybe you need to shrug up to help that pattern a little bit. If you're someone who sits at a computer all day, maybe you need to tip your shoulder blades back just a little bit and get into a little bit more extension at your upper back. So how you cue this is going to be dependent on the person, and it's one more example of how customization is important. What's also great about this exercise, it's actually an accidental assessment. If you can't do this exercise efficiently with a neutral core positioning as you get your arms overhead, you have no business snatching, overhead pressing, doing a lot of work up overhead. So whether you're an overhead athlete or a lifter who wants to spend some time under load up there, make sure you master a back to wall shoulder flexion before you start to load it and do it through more dynamic activities. So hopefully these 4 exercises give you a little bit of a feel for some warm-up stuff you can do if you're in a really extended posture and you want to learn how to make the most out of kind of using breathing to re-ingrain these patterns in a good way instead of a bad way. So we usually go 5 big deep breaths in the bottom position on a deep squat breathing with lat stretch. We'll do a set of 8 with a big exhale at the bottom on our bench T-spine mobs. When we go to dead bugs, we do 6 to 8 reps per side, each with a big exhale when we're down in that bottom position. And then for a back to wall shoulder flexion, we'll usually do a set of 8. In each case, we're going to exhale fully in the top position, let those ribs come down. So give them a shot, let me know what you think.